My first semester, I said, everyone was right. This is not for me. This sucks.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for a Mentorship Espresso episode.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
I want to start off by just tell us your name, what you do, where you work, and just some of those details.
Okay. Well, I'm Billy Brown. I'm a BCBA. I work at Brett Dinovi Associates. I am our Chief Information Officer, which, for anybody who knows what that means, it has nothing to do with being a BCBA. It's essentially, my role at our company is to develop all these systems that we use, whether they're proprietary technologies that I create in-house, or if it's looking at third-party vendors and bringing them on and then training our staff, all that stuff.
Yeah, I would imagine there's some ABA in there, or I'm sure a lot of ABA in there.
There certainly is, because I just kind of shoehorn it in there, but yeah, it's mostly a tech job.
How did you get into ABA?
Purely by accident. The quickest version of this story is I had finished my undergrad in psychology. I wanted to be a famous musician, so I said, I'm going to give myself a year in between my undergrad and graduate school to become famous. Okay. Based on me sitting on this couch right here, that part didn't work out too well. Okay. So I started applying for graduate programs, and I had reached out to my undergrad professor. We did research together, and it was a cognitive psychology program. Yeah. And I said, oh, this applied behavior analysis thing sounds really cool. It's very data driven. I love data. I love math. He goes, that's not what you want to do. Yeah. I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. He goes, that has nothing to do with the research you were doing. It doesn't sound like you. You don't want that. Because at this point, I had no clue what this was. Outside of reading a 1-paragraph blurb on Rider University's website, I didn't know the application of it. I just saw science-driven psychology. And I was like, sick. That's for me. So he said, don't do that. It's probably not going to be a great idea. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I submitted an application, wrote my letter, sent it over to them. Rider's admin office gives me a call, says, hey, we read your letter. It sounds like you actually want to be in our cognitive program. Would you like us to transfer you over there? Chances are you're going to be accepted. Yeah. And I said, nah, I'm good with ABA. So then they bring me in for the interview. I get interviewed. In my interview, Dr. Perrin, who now also works for BDA, she says, it doesn't seem like you want to be in ABA. And I laughed and I said to her, I was like, everyone keeps saying that to me. Why? Like, why do I not seem like a good fit for this? And she just said, all your experiences in cognitive. Yeah. At the time, I was working at a recording studio and working with kids with disabilities. Okay. And most of the work I was doing was more like music therapy than it was, ABA. Yeah. She explained all that to me and was very nice about it. And I said, no, I think this is the thing that I want to give a shot. Yeah. And up to this point, I had no experience in ABA at all. Luckily for me, it was a brand new program. They didn't have a lot of candidates, so they had to take me. Okay. So you're kind of at a feisty start. Yeah. They were trying to keep you out of it, and you stayed in. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, here you are. I know. In your time in the field of ABA, what have been some of your passions? What have you come to love about the field? It was a little bit tumultuous at first because my first semester, I said, everyone was right. This is not for me. This sucks. Everyone I met just kind of seemed like they had a stick up their butt. Yeah. Like it felt like everyone around me had drank the Kool-Aid. It was ABA is the best. It's the only science that matters. Screw those other modalities. ABA is the world. And I didn't get that because I had no exposure to it. I still don't totally get people who really chug the Kool-Aid with ABA, but absolutely hated it. Yeah. And it wasn't until my second semester when I met Bob LaRue that I was just like, oh, okay, not all these people are bad. And to be clear, you started taking some sips of that Kool-Aid? Yeah. But no, and to be clear, it wasn't like I hated my professors or anything like that. It's just every BCBA that I met kind of was a little pompous. Yeah. And I came from a world of music where all the pompous people tend to be the worst. Like somebody walks in the room like, oh, I'm the best drummer you've ever heard. Yeah. And you're like, okay, so you're clearly the worst. Like you're probably not that good. Yeah. It wasn't until that second semester that I started to find the things in the field that I was really driven to. Things like joint control was my first big one. Oh. Yeah. That's when I learned ABA isn't just pigeons and these small little close 3-term contingencies and things like that. So then that's when I was like, okay, there is some complexity to this. Not that behavior analysis isn't complex, but as a first-year grad student, you don't know the complex stuff yet. So that was my first real passion that got me to start reading research on my own, outside of school assignments. And that was that was really, really fun. Some of the things that have that's turned into over my career is educating others, because my first actual speaking engagement for ABA was on joint control. And then that led me to realize the attention maintained musician transferred over to the attention maintained behavior analyst.
Right.
So definitely I liked the research side of it a lot. And then now professionally, it's how technology can be applied to ABA.
Well, so we have a little connection.
Okay.
The founder of Joint Control, Dr. Barry Lowenkron, was my professor at Cal State LA.
So very cool.
That's the school that I come from, and he was my primary professor. I took all my coursework. I took with two professors. One of them was Dr. Lowenkron, who was the psychology, the chair of the department, and then Dr. Mayer, who was the chair of the counseling department, and it was a joint program. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Barry was my guy. I come from the school of Barry Lowenkron. So, yeah. Has there ever been a point along your career where you've wanted to just chuck it and go a different direction and say, I'm out?
Yeah. Well, if the first part of my story wasn't clear enough, but
right. So once you've been in it,
my second year of grad school, I got a job at a research clinic, and I liked the work I was doing a lot. Didn't super love the environment that I was in, and that's not totally the clinic's fault. Some of it was me just being young and immature. When I left that clinic, I kind of left really burnt out, and I didn't really know what burnout was at that time because it was tough. It was I think 8-hour shifts. And then we had to do all of our paperwork. And then I was going to grad school. Yeah. So I would leave my house, and it was about an hour north of me. So I'd leave my house on a good day at 6:30, on a bad day, 7:15. Yeah. And I wouldn't get home until close to 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Wow. So I was just burning the candle at both ends. And then obviously I had a social life, so I'd still go out and all this stuff. So I left that clinic, didn't realize totally what the burnout piece was. Yeah. And I left, honestly, kind of blaming the people who ran that clinic, which wasn't 100% fair, but I was like, man, all these BCBAs, they stink. They don't know how to run a business, blah, 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 young, angsty Billy. Yeah. And, here's how immature I was. I quit without a backup. I was like, here's my 2 weeks. Yeah. And I started working at a restaurant. And I found I really, really, really enjoyed working at a restaurant. And at this point, I had my I was in my last semester of my master's degree. Yeah. So I was almost done this master's degree, started working at this restaurant, fell in absolute love with it. Yeah. And I was really good at it too. Imagine the stress that you have working at a clinic, and then you go to a restaurant. Everyone who's stressed out about tables and stuff like that, it's nothing compared to a kid who can hit you with a desk. Right. Yeah. Right. I could take someone yelling at me over ketchup. So at that point, I was like, maybe I don't belong in ABA. I got an opportunity at the restaurant. They were going to make me a manager, and I was like, hey, the money's good. I like it. It suited my kind of young, immature lifestyle where I could work and go out and do all this, sleep in till 2. Yeah.
So what pulled you back in?
Well, ironically enough, I mentioned earlier that the music program that I worked for. Yeah. So I always stayed really good friends with the owner of that all throughout this. He called me up out of the blue one day and goes, are you looking for a job in ABA still? And I said, no, not at all. He goes, darn, I just met Brett Dinovi. And I was talking to him for a long time, and it seems like you'd be a great fit for his company. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not really interested. And this guy, Matt, was like, I'm going to email you his info anyway. He's like, I think it's a good idea. But yeah, so that's kind of what pulled me back in is I reached out to them. Okay. They said, come in for an interview. And part of what BDA does is when you get that email, they send you their social media stuff. Okay. So I started checking out some of the videos and watching those, and it was early Brett days. Yeah. So, it was a lot of crazy off the wall stuff. And I was like, this guy, I can work for him.
Right. It's a match. Yeah. We're aligned.
So I applied for BDA. I still was not sure. The restaurant I worked at said, you got to give us an answer on whether you want to join this management program, because they had to send me away to go get trained. So you have 3 days to figure this out. And I said, all right, well, if BDA gets back to me in a few days, I'm going to take that opportunity. So literally, I got the call from the person who's in charge of HR when I offered me the job. When I hung that phone call up, I got the call from the restaurant manager saying, we need your final answer. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I can't. See you later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was just a few moments before you had. That's. If
they would have chose to call me, maybe 1 or 2 other people, I would have been like, sorry, I already took another job.
Right.
And then I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. Well, so you talk about burnout. More and more people are experiencing it. They're talking about it. What advice would you give to young professionals that are experiencing burnout?
For me personally, when I look back on the times that I've felt burnt out, it's because there wasn't anything I was passionate about at that time. The work was just a grind. It was show up, get paid, leave. Okay. For me, I always had to find that thing that I was like really, really passionate about that made me want to show up for work or made me want to spend the extra few hours at night reading articles. The best advice I can give is find something about your job that you really, really enjoy and take whatever steps that will help you achieve that goal. Because if you're not focusing on the things that you're passionate about, then you will. It becomes monotonous. No one wants to be bored at work.
Sure. Yeah. Along the way, I imagine that there's been people that have been influential and mentors to you. Can you talk about that, who they are, what they did, and what was influential about them?
Yeah, I think if I can say from my personal all the way to professional, personally, so I'm a musician my whole life. Growing up, I had a guy who lived down the street from me who taught me guitar. Guy Andrew Connors, amazing music teacher. If anybody wants to get lessons, he's a phenomenal teacher.
Yeah, I'll take it.
He was always one of those guys who like really pushed that you get out of this what you put into it. And he really drilled that home. Like I'd show up to the lesson, he'd be like, "You didn't practice, go home." And I'd be like, "Well, can we work on something?" He said, "No. You didn't earn that. Like, you go." And he's a very kind person. I don't want people to think that he's like the guy from Whiplash.
Great movie.
But it taught me like you get the things that you earn. It instilled a really strong work ethic in me that I had to practice if I wanted to do these things because I was intrinsically motivated to be good at guitar. It was like it made me feel good. So I always say like, he was the first person to kind of instill that work ethic. And then there was my friend group growing up. We were all very competitive in a great way. So if one person had something, it's like I'll use the music example, like oh, you learned this song, I'm going to learn the song too. And we all pulled each other up, which was really, really helpful.
Yeah, you were helping each other level up too.
Yeah. And then into my adult life professionally, I mentioned Bob LaRue. I have all the love in the world for that guy. He really showed me that like BCBAs can be normal, cool people. I think he's really what inspired me to stick it through grad school. Actually, I got to say Matt Bogacki, the guy who linked me up with BDA. He shaped up a lot of those professional skills too. And he was always a good mentor. He was the kind of guy where you would hang out with him. Like you'd stay at work longer just to talk to him. Get that information. But within BDA, that's where a lot of my real like adult mentors have come from because that's where a lot of my work experience has been. I always point to Jason Galowski, who was he's our chief operating officer. He was really the first person in the company to be like, hey, like you've got a lot of talent. How can we shape this up and craft it? And he's helped me mold my career really to the place that it is. And then I'm not just saying this because he's right in the next room, but Brett, obviously. No, but Brett has done a really good job of helping me be finding my own path in leadership. So not just being my version of Jason, which nothing wrong with that, but Brett's helped me kind of find that voice and that leadership style that really fits me. So that's been really impactful.
Beautiful. What mark do you want to leave in this world, in the field, in this world? I'll just leave it wide open.
Huge question. It's a really tough question. I think on the world itself, I would just like to know that any actions that I took left it a better place than without me, right? They say like you want everyone crying at your funeral, right? I don't want anyone being like, good, glad that guy's gone. But to be self-serving with that question, I would love to develop some sort of product that ends up being like an industry standard, where it's like, hey, this changed the way that we now perform this type of intervention or something like that. That's my very selfish answer. The Billy intervention.
No, indeed, I could see it. And what advice would you give to young professionals coming into the field?
Honestly, say yes to everything you can. It sucks at first. You're going to grind, but all those things are learning opportunities. I find a lot when I talk to my supervisees and they're either freshly certified or they're asking, hey, what should I expect next? It's don't be afraid to take an opportunity that's outside of your comfort zone. That's great advice. If you have only worked with young kids, take that spot that puts you out of middle school. Learn it. There's other people in your network that you can lean on to get those competencies, but make sure that you're saying yes to a lot.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for sitting down on Mentorship Espresso. Appreciate it. And Yeah, we'll chat again.
Cool.
All
Thanks.
right. My man. Thank you.